OJ, California is an odd place, people say. It's interesting because it's a mix of rural country with residents that have lived there forever, and the other half is kind of a place where celebrities go to vacation with the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. So it's like rural, but also popular with celebrities. It's like a mix of everything. But everything is set in the stunning natural splendor of the OJ Valley, with beautiful orchards and hiking trails. There's still a big part of that area that's just wilderness. People have been going there to camp for a long time, and one of the scariest campfire stories that people tell around the fire is about the Charman. People to this day are unsure if this campfire story is real or fake, just to scare people. But it's been repeated so often over the years that a lot of people in OJ, California really think that it's real. They'll swear up and down that the Charman is actually out there. So I'm gonna tell you the story of the Charman. Get ready. So OJ, California is a very hot valley and one of the driest places in California. And you guys all know what happens when you have a really dry area. It can have a lot of forest fires, which is a terrible thing to ever happen. So there was a fire that broke out in 1948, and it was a particularly large fire, bigger than they've ever seen before. It burned a huge chunk of the valley. Tons of people who lived there had to flee for their lives. It was a really horrible event. Now, there was this isolated cabin that was sort of far off in the hills of OJ, away from everybody else. And this cabin was like in the middle of the forest where this fire was happening. There was a man who lived in this cabin with his young son, and they sort of kept their distance from people. They were kind of like shut-ins. And it says that the people who lived in OJ, California kind of forgot about them because they never really saw them. Well, their cabin was directly in the line of where the wildfire was happening, and so their entire place just sort of lit up in flames. The father unfortunately didn't make it, but the son got out, but he was horribly injured. He was burned up. Honestly, it was amazing he was even walking. But for some reason, this boy didn't try to run to get help. He sort of stayed and hid in one of the bushes by the burned up cabin. So when the police finally arrived at the scene and saw what took place, this boy for some reason was afraid of the police and decided to run away. So all these police saw was this burned kid running up the hill, and they never saw him ever again. It says he ran into the hills, and that was the last time anyone saw him up close. He had become the Charman of OJ, California, nothing short of a monster. So this is honestly a really sad story. I hope it's not true. It could honestly just be a scary campfire story, but people always say if you're ever hiking in this area, if you're camping in this area, there is a chance that you'll see him, and he's not a very pleasant sight because of what happened to him. There was actually a story that came out a few years ago where a teenage boy was hiking in the forest, and he claimed the Charman ran up and stole his jacket from him. Don't really know how accurate that claim is or how real that claim is, but people apparently see the Charman all the time. So I just found that really intriguing. And I would also love to know if any of you guys that are watching live near any of these places that I'm talking about. Wow. The last thing we're going to be talking about is the ghost of the Hollywood sign. I find this very intriguing because I went to California, when was it? 2 years ago? And I was right by the Hollywood sign. I got pictures of it, like, I was right there. This story is also very tragic. I feel like when it comes to most ghost stories, they're obviously going to be tragic because it involves someone passing away, usually tragically, and their spirit lingers wherever they passed away. So you're never really going to have like a happy paranormal story. On the night of September 18th, 1932, actress Peg Entwistle made her way up the steep slope of Mount Lee in Los Angeles to sit on the famous Hollywood sign. And back then when it happened, the Hollywood sign was actually spelled Hollywood Land, which I never knew about. That's kind of cool to know. She climbed up a 50-foot ladder to stand on top of the H, and she was up there looking over Hollywood and all of the lights and the glamour, and then she unfortunately jumped. And obviously it's a really high up ladder, so she didn't make it through the fall. She was found the next day by a hiker, and since then people have been spotting her spirit all around the Hollywood sign. Over the years, park rangers have reported seeing a pretty blonde woman dressed in 1930s clothing wandering around the park's path. She's always described as looking sad, and whenever anybody approaches approaches her, she vanishes. She most often appears late at night when conditions are foggy, and she is often accompanied by the strong scent of gardenias. And that is said to be Peg's favorite fragrance. She always wore that smell of perfume. Gardenia is a flower, right? But that's true for a lot of spirits. A lot of the times when you come across one, it comes with a scent as well, whether that be like cigar smoke, perfume. Sometimes it's like a scent of rot, which is usually meaning it's a bad spirit. But here's another encounter with someone seeing her. As a couple was walking their dog along the Beechwood Canyon trail of the park, their dog began to behave strangely. He was whimpering and cowering behind them, and this couple had no idea what was wrong. Suddenly, this woman appeared in front of them in out-of-date clothing, so something from the 1930s. She apparently looked very dazed and confused and sad, like people like to describe her. And when they went to approach her, she vanished. So yeah, this happens to people all the time, and it's weird thinking that I was right there and didn't know this story back then. I wish I kind of did. But that's why we have this series, so we can learn together about all of the haunted areas all around the world. So yeah, I'm gonna try and do this series a lot more often, and obviously at some point I will get to you watching right now. I will get to where you are, because I'm not just gonna do states, I'm gonna do everywhere around the world eventually. So yeah, hope you guys are enjoying this series. Don't forget the Running with Violet tickets are down below in the description. I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you at my next video. Bye!